Living in Virginia, you're in the fast lane on the information superhighway. We've invested $3 billion in Virginia's broadband network to give you one of the fastest internet connection speeds in the world, so you can build relationships, bring new business to our state, and meet the future of education. It's amazing what we can do together. Visit VCTA.com to learn how broadband connects the Commonwealth.
Welcome to a special edition of Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association. I'm Woody Evans. Today we are featuring several members of the Puller Institute dedicated to Senator Toddy Puller, who served 24 years with great distinction in the House and Senate. They are junior and senior high school students from the 36th District in Northern Virginia, represented by Senator Scott Somerville. While here in Richmond, they are watching the legislative process, both in the House and Senate, meeting with policymakers, and visiting historical sites. Welcome, students.
Thank you. Hi, thank you for having us.
First, I want to introduce Eva Somerville. Welcome, Eva. I take it you are related to the senator.
I am, thank you.
My condolences, as I indicated earlier. And Gracie Perrine, welcome. Katie Portillo, welcome to you.
Thank you for having me.
And Grace D. Nola, let me get this right. Grace D. Nicolatani. Let me try one more time.
You got it.
Grace D. Nicolatanio.
Di Nicolantonio, but very close.
Nicolantonio, good.
Thank
Grace,
you.
Since I've tortured your name, why don't we start with you with a question. You're here observing the workings of the legislature. What has impressed you about state government? What did you learn that you could contrast with what you've heard from the media, either on the radio or on television?
Yeah, well, it's been really influential for me personally. One of the first things we did, we came and we sat in on courts committee, and it's very impressive how direct state government is. As seniors in high school, we take AP government or government honors, but we're studying U.S. government. And there's so much focus put on the federal government, especially being from Northern Virginia, where we're from, that we're so close to D.C., federal government is so prominent, that it's really impressive seeing these bills being debated about, being disputed, being presented, and just analyzing the different views from Southern Virginia, Northern Virginia, because it impacts everybody in Virginia a lot more heavily than a lot of federal legislature does.
Great.
Yeah.
And what has impressed you the most, Eva?
Definitely what has impressed me the most is the fact that at home in Northern Virginia, I feel like we don't really get a sense of, how much our legislators truly care, because whenever we see them, it's usually like during campaigns when they sort of need our votes. But whenever I come down to Richmond, I really am truly impressed with how all of the senators and the delegates and my dad, how much you can tell that they truly care about their constituents, and they're not here for the money or the fame or anything. They're really here to make a difference, and that's really impressive to me.
And Gracie, what's been the favorite thing that you have observed or participated in here so far?
But by far, my favorite thing is meeting with Governor Northam yesterday. When the governor's election is happening, you see the ads on TV. You know who, at the time, I knew who my parents were voting for because I was unable to vote. And then he gets elected, great. You hear about him a couple times in the news, and then that's sort of it, at least for me. And when he walked into the conference room and the assistant said, "All rise," it felt really real. And I was not expecting this. He is probably one of the nicest people I've ever met. The whole time he kept eye contact, he smiled. when I was talking about my views on gun control and I got a little tongue-tied, he was like, "You're doing absolutely fine." So it just was he was so positive. It really made me feel good about myself and the whole thing.
Great. And Katie, tell us a little bit about a topic that you may use when you go back as a result of this experience in terms of a presentation.
Right, so with this program we have to do a 10-minute presentation, and yesterday when we met with different lobbyist groups, one of the lobbyists was with Good Neighbor, which is about mental illness, and personally for myself, youth mental illness and mental health is a big thing for me because I've seen how it can impact my peers and the people around me, especially since Northern Virginia is such a competitive little bubble of itself, like academically trying to strive for greatness. And so I've seen how the pressures of that can like be a lot for people, and they succumb to anxiety and stress and depression. So I think one of my things that I'm going to put into my presentation is about youth mental health, since we aren't able to vote until we're 18, and how our government officials can help us in like giving us the voice.
Great. And Gracie, what inspired you to apply to the Polar Institute?
It was kind of a happy accident, if I'm being honest. I've always been super active in my government class, and it's a really interesting thing. So when my government teacher was giving this opportunity, he said, "Hey guys, by the way, there's this thing you want to sign up for at Polar Institute, more information here." I thought it over. I was like, okay, did my homework, and then I was looking through it again, and the application seemed to cater to what I had done in the past. I've done a lot of governmental programs, and so it just seemed like a good fit for me. So I did my application, and when I got an email saying I was accepted into the program, I was like, wow, like, who knew that this would actually like happen and I'll be going down to Richmond? I didn't think as much of it as I do now, and I'm so glad I did it because this has really been an eye-opening few days.
So Eva, how many days are you here in Richmond to observe the General Assembly?
So we've been here for this will be our third day. We sort of arrived on like the afternoon of the first day, so we really got like one full day, which was yesterday.
Great. And have you been involved with any lobbyists? Have you met with any advocacy groups?
Yeah, so we met with an advocate for the Sierra Club yesterday, along with an organizer for VA ratify the ERA, and that was really interesting. I'm not sure, did we meet with anyone else today?
No. We met with lobbyists yesterday. A lobbyist from Transurban, a lobbyist from two capitals. Corporate
firms,
two capitals company, and then Good Neighbor, as Katie mentioned.
It's interesting you mentioned Transurban because that's an Australian company that has built, as a part of the public-private partnership, the hot lanes up in Northern Virginia.
And he was really personable. He was making jokes. Might be the most disliked guy in the room right now. So us from Northern Virginia, but
Gracie, tell us a little bit more about the conversation you had with the governor about gun control.
So I personally am for gun control, for background checks, and he asked us what we would do in order to deal with the disagreement that is currently happening with the two sides. I said that in no realistic world, can everybody, get exactly what they want. They need to negotiate. And so taking it little by little, for example, banning bump stocks would of course be a way in the long process to get more gun control.
And of course, Katie, there's been a lot of discussion around here about a constitutional amendment on the state level regarding equal rights for women.
Yes.
Have you had any discussions with anybody about that?
So like Eva said, we met with advocates from VA Ratify ERA and the Sierra Group, and then this morning it wasn't necessarily in our schedule, but we went and watched the House committee discussion this morning at 7:30. The only person in our group that got to go in was Gracie, so lucky for her, because there was very limited seating, but we all watched from outside, and it was really interesting because we were also watching the live stream since we weren't able to hear what was going on in there, and it was kind of it was nice to be able to feel like you were a part of a historic moment in your state's history.
And Grace, go ahead.
Yeah, like to piggyback what Katie is saying, it was a very touching situation because probably more than 100 women were out here, women and men for that matter, supporting VA ratified ERA, and we also had opponents of VA ratified ERA, and it was really impressive, the people that show out for a committee meeting. It's subcommittee meeting, like even less at 7:30 in the morning, and there was like a line outside the door. There was no seating to get in. So afterwards, after they concluded their meeting, there was just hordes of women and men and talking about the Equal Rights Amendment, and we talked with a couple women that were in support of it, in opposition to it, and there were just so many sweet people, friendly faces to talk to about and like share common opinions, share differences in opinion surrounding the Equal Rights Amendment, and it's nice to have that discourse and that narrative since we're so young.
Eva, do you think most people understand the fact that there are subcommittee meetings at 7 in the morning and these members actually work late into the night?
No, I mean, not at all. I remember last night we had dinner and my dad came and Senator McPike and it was like 7, I would say, and they were like, okay, gotta go to a caucus meeting, and we were like, oh, it's 7 at night. Like, what are you doing?
And like right before that, they were on the floor until like 5 p.m.,
Yeah.
4 or 5 p.m. They have long days.
People just don't understand that like politics isn't their only or like primary job most of the time. I mean, my dad has a law firm, and like I think a lot of the politicians here are actually lawyers, but a lot of them, like Mr. McPike is a firefighter, so people have other careers. You know, they're sacrificing their time to be here. Yeah.
And Gracie, what advice would you have to other high school students who may want to participate in this program?
Do it. Apply. It's by far been one of the best experiences I've ever had, especially dealing with government, which is a topic which I'm very interested in. And even if you're not sure, I would recommend to apply for it.
Katie, what's been your biggest surprise here?
Just like how the process really works, because I feel like in the media, all they really focus on is like the federal government, especially everything that's going on with Trump and like the government shutdown, but nobody really understands, or at least personally, I didn't like get the whole view that that's not what impacts my everyday life. What really does is what's down here in Richmond, like seeing all these bills. This morning, there was a bill about firefighters and getting more or different kinds of cancer cover for them. And it like shows you that that's the kind of stuff that actually impacts people's lives. Like there are millions of people out there that have illnesses, and so bills like that are trying to get ratified for people, our first responders, it shows you how
relevant it is.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it shows
And
you
that the scope is so big that it's so much more than just what's going on a federal level. There's so many intricacies to legislation. The bills can be tiny, bills can be huge, amendments can be huge, but it doesn't really matter when it comes down to it. It's all legislation and it's all important.
Yeah.
Great. Well, you know, we're so glad to have you all here, and we hope your experience is a very positive one. Take good words back to Northern Virginia about what happens here in Richmond. Thank you for being here.
Thank you
for having us.
Thank you for watching this special edition of Cable Reports. We will continue in a few minutes with another group of students. Thank you.
Living in Virginia, you're in the fast lane on the information superhighway. We've invested $3 billion in Virginia's broadband network to give you one of the fastest internet connection speeds in the world, so you can build relationships, bring new business to our state, and meet the future of education. It's amazing what we can do together. Visit VCTA.com to learn how broadband connects the Commonwealth.
We're continuing our discussion today with students from Northern Virginia affiliated with the Puller Institute. Let me introduce them to you. Sabine Akhter, good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Pamela Benitez, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Beza Girma, nice to have you here.
Nice being here.
Justin Miller, good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about your experience with the Polar Institute. Why did you apply, and what your experience has been so far here?
Yes, Woody, it is it's an awesome experience, especially for those interested in going to public service or government or politics. Yesterday we sat in on committee sessions and or rather committee hearings, and we met the governor, lieutenant governor, got a tour of the Virginia Capitol building, and opportunities that I think that most students wouldn't have, but thankfully for programs like this, they are possible. I did the Polar Institute because I'm actually interested in public service, including both the military and maybe one day government, either at the state or national level. And that's why I chose it. I thought it was a great opportunity to learn about the state government, which I feel as if it's often overlooked in the classroom. We always hear about national government and Congress and the president, but most people, I would probably guess, and most fellow students of mine, don't even know they're a state delegate or senator. So I thought it was a great opportunity to learn about our state government.
Wonderful. And Sabine, there was a meeting with the governor. I understand you attended among others. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, Governor Ralph Northam is very charismatic and welcoming. He allowed us and encouraged us to be open about our ideas and opinions regarding the state government, and I think it's because it's imperative for how the state government functions and the bills that we can create, decline, or approve for better standards of quality for Virginia.
Wonderful. And Pamela, I understand you were part of a group that observed and participated in a discussion concerning the Equal Rights Amendment.
Right, we had to wake up so early just to see it, but I thought it was so worth it because even though so many people had different opinions in the room, it was just nice to see everyone so passionate about what they believed in.
And Beza, what's been your biggest surprise since you've been here?
So before I got here, I didn't really understand the importance of state government, especially within the state of Virginia, because the state government actually controls the localities. And so we got to sit in on Senate hearings, or subcommittee hearings, and it was really interesting to see, like, Senator Obashane, okay, thank God I didn't mess it up again, and like how he quickly got cases through the courts of justice, because that's like a really big Senate committee and like has so many bills on docket. And so it was really interesting just to see how he interacted and how they all interact with each other, and you can tell that they're all like close and they all know each other, and it's a very nice change than what you see in Congress and what you see in the Senate and the House of Representatives, because it's very partisan there, and you could tell that there's lots of animosity, versus here it's not only more mellow, but like people work together to get bills through. They are friends, and so I really like that change, and that really surprised me, because it was like awesome.
And Justin, were you surprised at the amount of work these members actually put in? 7 a.m. Subcommittee meetings, floor votes in the afternoon, and then meeting with constituencies and studying at night for the next day.
Frankly, I was surprised. Before this, I didn't know that much about state government, aside from what I learned at Boise State and all that. I thought it was just, all right, guys, let's go in and vote on some bills. But these are hardworking men who, this is not, I wouldn't really call it a secondary job. This goes along with their primary job. They're not only maybe a lawyer, but they're also have to serve their constituents. So I was very surprised, and I really respect those men, our state delegates and senators out on the floor.
And Sabine, what about the nature and content of the debate you have observed? Have you been impressed with the fact that these members actually communicate with each other even though they have opposing points of view?
I do. Living in Northern Virginia, all I can think about is how Congress works in DC. And so coming here to the state government and listening to the committee debates, our subcommittees, it's good to see how people stand by their opinions and what they argue for.
And Pamela, as I understand it, the Puller Institute requires participants when they go back home to make a presentation about some subject that they've thought about and analyzed while they were here. Have you picked anything out yet?
To be totally honest, I haven't thought much about my presentation yet, but from gathering all these ideas and listening onto committees, I've been thinking of doing something environmental related, since that seems something that's really prominent that's going on around here.
And Beza, what about advice to any other of your high school students who are not here in terms of participating in this process?
Well, the first thing I would say is get informed. Find out who your state senator is, who your state delegate is. As much as it's important to vote in federal elections, it's way more important to vote in your city council, in your state senator, and your these state elections, because while the federal deals with everybody, time and time again, it's shown that these people, their main concern is Virginians. They don't care about what's happening with California. They don't care about spreading the wealth everywhere in the U.S. They only care about our state and how to make the state one of the best and make it one of the leading states in the country on whatever subject it may be, STEM, medicine, business, I don't know, the list goes on and on and on. And so really just get involved and find out what's going on, because bills that pass through there, they affect me and every single one of us. And if we're only concerned about the federal elections and what's happening there, we forget that. And people who are older and have different views of what younger people might have will really take control, and that's going to affect us in ways that we didn't really consider or ever thought about. So yeah, just get informed.
And Justin, that's a very praiseworthy career path that you had articulated earlier. There are about 10% of the General Assembly that are either current or foreign military, and obviously a lot of them volunteered for that, just like they have volunteered to serve as members of the House of Delegates. A lot of them started off at the local level, parent-teacher associations, school boards, boards of supervisors. So where do you see yourself after your military service, if that's what you do?
So after military service, I really want to maybe not get right into the thick of it, of government and policy making. Maybe work for a policy maker, a lawmaker, so I can kind of learn the ropes, learn how things work in our government, and then from there maybe run for office at the local level, and then move my way up to state and so on if I am blessed enough to be that successful.
And Sabine, tell us a little bit more about your interest in politics. Did you really have any interest in politics other than what you may have learned in government class before you came here?
Well, as of now, I'm more into technology and specifically cybersecurity. But coming here with the Puller Institute, I learned about more of policymaking and what our state government does and how it contributes overall to Virginia and as a whole to the United States. So I think it's important for all of us to understand how laws are made and the time that goes into providing for everyone as a whole.
And of course, Pamela, yesterday, besides the halls being filled with people supporting and opposing the Equal Rights Amendment, there were a number of other people on a host of other issues. Were you really surprised at the crowds and and how passionate they are about the issues they are involved in?
I was definitely surprised. I didn't think so many people would show up to these hearings and everything. I thought most people would probably just stay at home and watch on television. I didn't think they'd actually come and start rallying and supporting what they believed in.
And Baze, have you had the opportunity to meet with any advocacy groups or lobbyists?
Oh, we did. We actually sat down, like, with us and also the other groups over here. We were able to talk to the Sierra Club and also the current person who's organizing everything that does with the Equal Rights Act, that they want to get ratified. And so it was really cool because they had us sat down and come up with how to get something that may be a little bit controversial through our state senate and so forth, like starting a petition, things like that, and just to help us realize like how we are a small piece in this big moving part, but there are so many small pieces that it can just easily overwhelm and overcrowd all the parts. And if we don't use our voices, if we don't say what we want, then you're diminishing that power, the power of the people. So it was really nice to see that.
Justin, I assume your career path will include continued learning at one of our institutions of higher learning. There's a lot of student debt these days, and of course that's an issue that's addressed here in the General Assembly. I don't know if you've had any chance to talk to anybody about that issue, but how does student debt affect you going forward, you think?
Well, it is definitely going to have a huge effect. I'm going to have to rack on some debt, in order to actually go to places of higher education. And personally, I don't like that. I think that maybe we can do stuff about that, because the price of college has risen a lot. Even my parents talk about the days where they could get maybe a few credit hour class for $300 or less. And I just think that there are things that can be done. And yeah.
Great. Well, Sabine, I'm going to give you the last word. If you have any advice to give to any of your colleagues back home, what would it be?
Definitely to take more interest in our local governments, because there's a lot of things that they do that I didn't think that they were given to do, and how they contribute to Virginia overall. And this goes by state, any state, how their state or local government works to provide for the betterment of their state, and then contribute overall to the United States.
Well, thank you for being with us today. Good luck in the future. Have a good time while you're here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
I
us.
appreciate it.
Thank you for watching this edition of Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans. Mm-hmm.